family tried to bury the truth, but the CEO revealed something that shook me to my core. What happens when the maid turns out to be the mastermind? Find out how this betrayal leads to a life-changing moment for me. Combined. Hook. My name is Hannah. For years, my family treated me like a maid, lying, manipulating, and taking everything from me. But when the CEO revealed the shocking truth, everything changed. Turns out, I wasn't just the maid. I was the silent founder. What happens when a lifetime of betrayal meets the revelation of a lifetime? Find out how I took back control and how my family's secrets were finally exposed. I've always been the invisible one, the one who does everything and gets nothing. You'd think, after years of sacrifices, I'd have earned my place in the family. But no, my younger sister Sarah always steals the spotlight. I live in Manhattan, surrounded by success and wealth. I run my own event planning business, and I do it well. But when I visit my family in Connecticut, none of that matters. To them, I'm still just the girl who cooks and cleans while Sarah, perfect, flawless Sarah, gets the attention. She's the one they brag about, the one they always praise. She works in PR, a field that gets people talking, and she's good at it. She's the one they admire, the one they want to be. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but I swallow it. I have to. Because I'm a grown woman now, and I've learned to hide my frustrations. They don't see the hard work behind the scenes, the sleepless nights I put in to make everything look perfect. They only see the final product, and they think that's all I am, a helper. I stand in the kitchen, stirring the sauce for the family's annual Christmas Eve dinner. The rich, savory scent fills the room, but it doesn't bring me comfort anymore. My hands are numb from chopping vegetables, my back aching from hours of standing. Yet I'm still expected to be the one who holds it all together, while Sarah, who's already at the table, looking flawless in her designer dress, talks to the guests, laughing and enjoying herself. There's a strange kind of bitterness in me now. It's not the kind of bitterness that makes you explode in anger. No, it's quiet. It's the kind of bitterness that eats away at you, one small, invisible wound at a time. My mother's voice pulls me out of my thoughts. Hannah, can you bring the salad to the table? Sarah's already greeting the guests, and I need you to take care of the food. I nod, of course, because what else am I supposed to do? I carry the salad to the table, where Sarah is laughing with some of the executives from Pinnacle Corporation. They all look at me as if I'm invisible, their eyes passing over me as if I don't matter. I don't matter. I know that now. I'm just the one who makes things run smoothly, the one who keeps things clean, the one who doesn't complain. It's in those moments that I feel like I'm suffocating. My heart feels tight, and the weight of it all presses down on me. I wonder how long I can keep doing this, how long I can keep pretending it's okay, but I know, deep down, that it's not. Later that evening, after the last guest leaves and the house quiets down, I find myself standing by the window, looking out at the cold, empty streets. The lights of Manhattan twinkle in the distance, but I'm too tired to care. I should be grateful. I should be thankful for the family, for the business, for the life I've built. But the truth is, I'm not. I'm exhausted. And I'm fed up. I take a deep breath, staring at the plane ticket I've been holding in my hand for weeks. Florida, a business trip I've been postponing. I told myself I'd go eventually, but I never had the courage. I always let my family hold me back. But not this time. I walk over to my suitcase, my mind racing. I'm done. I'm done being the silent maid. I'm done doing everything for everyone else and getting nothing in return. I'm done being invisible. I pack my bag with shaking hands, my heart pounding in my chest. This is it. The moment I finally break free. As I finish packing, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Sarah. You're really not going to show up for Christmas Eve dinner? Mom's really disappointed, you know. I stare at the message for a moment, the anger rising in me. I don't respond. Instead, I turn off my phone and place it in my bag. I walk out of my apartment, closing the door behind me. For the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm walking away from something. I feel like I'm walking towards something bigger. The plane ride to Florida feels surreal. The weight of the family's expectations is finally lifting off my shoulders. I look out the window, watching as the city below grows smaller, until it's nothing but a blur. I close my eyes, feeling the hum of the plane beneath me. For the first time, I don't feel like I'm running away. I'm running towards something new, something for me. I can't help but smile. I've made it. I've finally broken free. I was in the kitchen, hands deep in the turkey, trying to make sure every dish was perfect for Christmas Eve dinner. The house smelled like cinnamon, rosemary, and roasted meats, exactly how it always smelled at Christmas. But something felt different this time. The weight of the air, the tension hanging thick between the walls, it was suffocating. My phone buzzed on the counter. I already knew what it was before I even looked. I had seen the name on the screen, Mom. The text I had sent her earlier, asking if I could take the night off, had been ignored, as always. Instead, I got a call. The same old routine. Hannah, I need you to handle the dinner. You're making a turkey, a ham, and all the sides. Oh, and we're having 25 guests this year, including some of Sarah's important work friends. I could hear my mother's voice, demanding, sharp, like she always did. The undertone of superiority in her voice didn't escape me either. As usual, Sarah was off mingling with the guests, letting me do all the work while she stood front and center in her glamorous PR world. Mom, No buts, Hannah. We've got a lot to do, and Sarah is busy entertaining. You're good at this. You've always been good at this. The words hung in the air long after she hung up. You're good at this. That was all I was good at. That was all I ever would be in their eyes. A servant. My whole existence boiled down to that. Always giving, always doing, always staying out of the way so Sarah could shine. I slammed the knife down on the cutting board, taking a deep breath. It felt like a punch in the gut every time. The frustration, the helplessness, the anger, it was all building inside of me. My hands shook as I chopped the vegetables, but it wasn't from the pressure of the meal. It was from the pressure of my entire life, the pressure of being invisible in my own family. I wiped my hands on the towel, then glanced at my reflection in the kitchen window. I didn't even recognize the woman I saw anymore. Where was the girl who used to dream of being something more than just a cook and cleaner? I had been swallowed whole by their expectations, by their demands, by their disregard for everything I had achieved outside the kitchen. I closed my eyes, trying to ground myself. It was Christmas Eve, the same as it had been for years, and yet, this time, I felt something snap inside me. The doorbell rang. I didn't need to look. Sarah was home now, no doubt making her grand entrance, dressed to the nines in some designer outfit, probably talking about her latest PR stunt, how she was making waves in the media, how she was the star of the family. But I stayed in the kitchen, busying myself with the task at hand. I didn't want to hear her talk about her successful life. Not when I was here, once again, making sure everything was perfect while she soaked up the glory. The evening passed in a blur. I worked in silence, the heat of the kitchen nearly unbearable. The conversation at the table was loud, animated, filled with laughter and compliments for Sarah. Meanwhile, I served the food and cleared the dishes, a ghost in my own home. By the time the night came to an end, my body was aching. I had hardly eaten, barely spoken. Just another Christmas where I was a servant in my own family's eyes. But then, something shifted in me, something that had been building for years, a knot in my chest that had finally reached its breaking point. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that it was okay to be treated like this. I deserved more. I deserved to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. Later that night, I was alone in my room, the weight of the day settling on my shoulders. The house was quiet now. Everyone was asleep. I stared at my phone, the screen lit up with messages from my family, but I couldn't bring myself to read them. I couldn't bear the thought of hearing more demands, more dismissals, more expectations. Instead, I turned to the thing that had been weighing on me for days. My plane ticket. Florida. It was supposed to be a business trip, a way to escape, to break free from this suffocating life. And now, I had the chance to take that step. I grabbed the ticket off my desk, staring at it for a moment, letting it sink in. For the first time in years, I wasn't doing something for them. I wasn't living my life for their approval. I was doing something for me. I was going to Florida, and I wasn't going to let anything hold me back. The decision hit me like a wave. I wasn't just walking away from a holiday dinner. I was walking away from the family that had made me feel less than for my entire life. I was done being the silent maid, the one who never got credit. I was done being invisible. As I packed my bag, my hands trembling with excitement and fear, I realized something. I wasn't running away from them. I was running towards something bigger, something for myself. As I zipped up my suitcase and grabbed my phone, I saw a message pop up from Sarah. "Not coming to the dinner. Mom's going to be so upset." I didn't even hesitate. I turned off my phone, placed it in my bag, and walked out the door. I was free. As I got into the cab and headed toward the airport, I couldn't help but smile. This was my moment. For the first time, I was making a choice that was mine. I wasn't doing this for anyone else. I was doing this for me. I felt the rush of excitement building in my chest as I stepped off the plane. Florida's warm air hit me instantly, a stark contrast to the cold, biting winds of New York. I had done it. I had actually walked away. No more family demands, no more living in the shadow of Sarah. I was finally free. The airport was bustling with energy, but it felt different this time. I wasn't just passing through. It was the start of something bigger, something for me. As I made my way to the taxi line, I thought back to the moment I had decided to leave everything behind. It had been so easy, so natural. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my thoughts. I didn't need to check who it was. I already knew. It was the reminder that my family was still there, still trying to keep me tied to them, but I wasn't going to let it pull me back. I glanced at the time and realized I was late for my meeting with Victoria Chen, the CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality. This meeting was the reason I was in Florida in the first place. The opportunity of a lifetime. As I settled into the back seat of the taxi, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything I was leaving behind. It wasn't just my family's expectations I was shedding, it was years of suppressed dreams, of living for someone else. I was moving on, and the future ahead of me was wide open. When the cab finally pulled up to Pinnacle's office, I could hardly wait to step inside. The glass building reflected the sunlight, gleaming in a way that made me feel like I was finally in the right place. I had earned this. I had worked hard for this moment. I walked into the sleek, modern building, the smell of fresh coffee and polished wood filling my senses. The receptionist greeted me with a smile, and I gave her my name. I was led to a spacious conference room where Victoria was already waiting. Victoria Chen wasn't what I expected. She was direct, professional, and surprisingly warm for someone in such a powerful position. As we shook hands, she gave me a genuine smile, and I could feel the respect radiating off of her. There was no judgment, no pretense, just a businesswoman who valued what I brought to the table. She didn't waste time with small talk. "Hannah, I've heard great things about your work. Your reputation precedes you, and I'm excited about the possibility of working together," she said, settling into her seat. I could feel the weight of her words. This wasn't just a courtesy. She was impressed, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was truly being seen. Not as Sarah's older sister, not as the family servant, but as Hannah, the successful entrepreneur. We jumped right into the details. Victoria explained that Pinnacle Hospitality wanted to hire my company to handle the event planning for one of their most high-profile clients, a multi-million-dollar deal. It was a big opportunity, one that could elevate my business to the next level. My heart raced. The possibilities were endless. This was the breakthrough I'd been working for, the chance to prove not just to my family, but to myself, that I was capable of so much more. But as the meeting progressed, a nagging thought lingered in the back of my mind. How did Victoria hear about me in the first place? My company wasn't exactly a household name, not yet anyway. Victoria smiled as if reading my thoughts. "I heard about your work through a mutual connection," she said casually. "Someone in your family network recommended you." I froze for a moment, my mind scrambling to process what she had just said. Someone in my family? Sarah. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a coincidence. Had Sarah's PR connections somehow led me here? Did my family's influence play a role in this success, even when I had worked so hard to build my business independently? The excitement I had felt just moments ago began to slip away, replaced by a sinking feeling in my chest. Had I truly earned this, or was I just another cog in the machine they'd built for themselves? The meeting continued, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't shake the nagging doubt that this success wasn't entirely mine to claim. Yes, I had worked hard, but was I still under the shadow of my family's influence? Had I been used without even realizing it? After the meeting, Victoria walked me out with a smile. "I'm looking forward to working with you, Hannah. Let's make this happen." I forced a smile in return, but inside, I felt more conflicted than ever. The deal was mine, but it didn't feel as satisfying as it should have. As I left the building, I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It was already late afternoon. I needed to process everything. I went back to my hotel room, my head swirling with thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that my family's connections had somehow helped me land this deal. Sarah's PR world, her connections, had probably played a part in getting me in the door. And then the text came in. "Hey, how did it go with the CEO?" It read. It was from Sarah. The tone was casual, but I could feel the underlying judgment, the subtle implication that my success had come through their help, not my own abilities. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the message. Anger bubbled up inside me, mixing with the confusion. It was like she was trying to take credit for something that was mine, even when she had no idea how hard I had worked for it. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't let them control my narrative, not now, not ever again. I picked up my phone, typing out a message to my family. It was time to set boundaries. I got the deal with Pinnacle Hospitality. It's a huge step for my business, and I did it on my own. I don't need your connections to prove my worth. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came almost immediately from Sarah. "How much of that deal is really yours, though? It's only a matter of time before family connections pull through." Her words stung, but I didn't let them rattle me. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself. I put my phone down, staring out the window. The sun was setting over the Florida skyline, casting a golden hue over the city. It felt like a sign. I had taken the first step, but the battle was just beginning. I was in the middle of reviewing my plans for the upcoming event when I heard the knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, I debated ignoring it. But then I heard my mother's voice, a sound that I could never ignore, even if I wanted to. My stomach dropped. I stood up slowly and walked to the door, my hands cold despite the warm apartment. I opened it, and there they were. My mother, Margaret, standing there with a plastic smile, and Sarah right behind her, looking just as put together as always, the usual perfection that made my skin crawl. "Hello, Hannah," my mother said in that overly sweet voice. "We need to talk." My mother stepped inside, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and Sarah followed her, giving me a knowing glance. I wanted to slam the door in their faces, but I didn't. I let them in, trying to keep my breathing steady. "Well, we've got the Christmas dinner coming up soon," my mother continued, completely ignoring the fact that I had just signed a multi-million-dollar deal. "I'm sure you'll be helping with the dinner, right?" It wasn't a question, it was a demand. As always, I clenched my jaw. I had just pulled off the biggest deal of my career, and all she saw was the girl who cooked and cleaned for them. She didn't even acknowledge the success I had achieved on my own. "I'm actually busy with work right now," I replied, keeping my tone as calm as I could manage. "I have a few things lined up." But my mother wasn't listening. She turned to Sarah, who was already looking smug, and said, "Well, we'll need Hannah to make sure everything's in order." "You're not much of a cook, darling." Sarah's lip curled into a smile. "You know how it is, Mom. I have my work to do." Of course, Sarah, the golden child, would never be asked to do anything. She was too busy managing her PR clients, her social events. She was the one everyone praised. Me? I was the one who stayed in the background, the one who was always overlooked, always expected to play the role of the servant. I stood there for a moment, letting their words settle like a heavy weight in my chest. But then, a fire ignited inside me. This time, I wasn't going to play along. This time, I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I wasn't their maid anymore. "You know what?" I said, finally looking my mother in the eye. "I'm not going to do it. I'm done." My mother blinked, surprised by my sudden defiance. "What do you mean you're not going to help? You're the only one who knows how to make the dinner." I shook my head. "I'm not your maid, Mom. I'm not here to take care of everyone while you sit back and relax. I've done enough of that." There was a long silence. Sarah's eyes widened for a moment, and I could see the slight shift in her expression as she processed what I had just said. For the first time, I saw a flicker of discomfort in her eyes. It didn't last long, but it was there. My mother recovered quickly, her voice going colder. "You really think you're too good for this family now, don't you? You think that just because you've managed to do one thing on your own, you've outgrown us?" I took a deep breath, refusing to back down. "No, I'm not outgrowing you. I'm outgrowing the role you've placed me in. I'm done living in the shadows." Sarah crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Is that how it is, then? You're too good for us now, after everything we've done for you?" My chest tightened, but I refused to let their words rattle me. "You've done nothing for me, Sarah. You've taken everything, and I've been too blind to see it." But not anymore. The silence between us grew thick, and for the first time in my life, I realized just how much I had sacrificed, how much I had been manipulated by them. My mother, my sister, they had never seen me as more than the background, the one who made sure everything worked while they played their parts. I stepped back from the door, my heart pounding. "I'm not doing this anymore. I've worked hard to get where I am. You didn't help me. You didn't believe in me. And now that I've succeeded, you want to take credit for it?" My mother's face hardened, but she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced at Sarah, and I could see the unspoken understanding between them. They didn't care about my success. They cared about what they could take from me, how they could keep me in line. "I don't need you to help me," I continued, my voice steadier now. "I've made my own way. And if you can't accept that, then I'll have to do it without you." There was a pause, and then my mother spoke, her voice filled with coldness. "Fine. You want to live on your own terms? Go ahead, but don't expect us to be here when you fall flat." I felt the sting of her words, but I didn't let them break me. "I don't need you to be here." I turned away from them, my mind spinning with everything that had just happened. I had finally said it, the truth. But as I walked back into the living room, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, already knowing who it was. It was Victoria Chen, reminding me of the event we had planned together. A reminder that there was a future waiting for me, one that didn't involve my family. I smiled for the first time that day, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. I had finally taken control of my life. But as I sent the email to my family, explaining that I would no longer be playing by their rules, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. The fallout was coming, and I was ready for it. The phone rang just as I was trying to focus on my business plans. I didn't recognize the number, but somehow I knew it was coming. My father's voice echoed through the line as soon as I picked up. "Hannah, we need to talk." I felt the familiar tension creep back into my chest. My father had always been the quieter one in our family, often staying in the background while my mother and sister took center stage. But now, his voice was insistent, and I could feel the weight of what was about to come. "What is it, Dad?" I asked, my voice steady but my pulse quickening. "I'm sorry," he started, "but your mother, she's upset. You know how much the family event means to us. You can't just drop everything and abandon us like this." His words hit harder than I expected. He wasn't just concerned about the event. He was concerned about what it would mean if I didn't show up. He wasn't thinking about my success, my business, my independence. It was as though all of that didn't matter. What mattered to him was the family image, the tradition. "I'm not abandoning you," I replied, keeping my voice calm despite the sharp sting of betrayal. "I'm just choosing something for myself for once." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear him processing my words. Then, finally, he spoke again, his tone colder now. Hannah, you're making a mistake. You've always put the family first, and now you're willing to throw that all away? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the same man who had stood by and watched me be used, ignored, and treated like nothing more than a servant. And now he was telling me I was making a mistake for standing up for myself. I took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. I'm not your maid anymore, Dad. I don't exist to fulfill your expectations. I've worked hard for everything I have, and I'm not going to let you or Mom take that from me. My words were like a slap in the face, but I wasn't sorry for saying them. Not anymore. Don't you dare talk to me like that, he snapped, his voice rising in anger. You think you're too good for us now? You think just because you have a little success in your business, you can forget where you came from? His words cut deep, deeper than I wanted to admit. But I wasn't going to let him manipulate me any longer. No, Dad, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I don't think I'm too good for you. I just think I'm done playing the role you've set for me. You and Mom have never seen me as anything other than someone to serve, and I'm done with that. There was another pause, longer this time, as if he were trying to process everything I'd just said. Finally, his voice cracked. I didn't raise you to be like this. You're tearing this family apart. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. It was the same thing my mother had always said, and it felt like a betrayal from someone I had always looked up to. But I couldn't go back to being that person, the obedient daughter who put everyone else's needs above her own. I couldn't let them guilt-trip me into sacrificing my future for the sake of their comfort. I'm sorry, Dad, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But I'm not coming back. I'm done living for you. The line went silent before my father spoke again, his voice low and resigned. If that's the way you want it, then don't bother coming back. And with that, he hung up. I stood there in the middle of my apartment, the weight of what had just happened crashing down on me. My father, the one person I had always wanted to make proud, had just cut me off. But in that moment, something shifted within me. I wasn't going to let this break me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I realized that my family could no longer control me. I was finally free, but the cost had been higher than I had ever imagined. As I stood in the quiet aftermath of the phone call, the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was before I opened it. My mother and sister stood in the doorway, their expressions cold. My mother didn't even wait for me to invite her in before she barged past me, followed closely by Sarah. Well, my mother began, crossing her arms and glaring at me. It's nice to see you've finally made your decision. I hope you're happy with it. I didn't respond. My heart was racing, but I was done with playing their games. They had pushed me to the edge, and now I was pushing back. We came to talk some sense into you, Sarah said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You can't just turn your back on us. We're family. I felt a surge of anger rise up in me. Don't you dare use the word family like you actually care about it. You've never cared about me. All you care about is control. Sarah's eyes narrowed. You're just being dramatic. No, I snapped. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being real for the first time in my life. My mother raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by my boldness. You think you've got it all figured out now, don't you? You're just going to walk away from us like we never mattered? I shook my head, my voice steady but filled with conviction. I'm not walking away from you. I'm walking towards something better, something that's mine, and I'm not letting either of you take that away from me. There was a tense silence as they processed my words. I knew the storm wasn't over, but I also knew that I had taken the first step toward freedom. I won't be part of this family's toxic drama anymore, I said, feeling the weight of the decision settle within me. I'm done. I turned away from them, feeling a sense of finality as I moved toward my bedroom. As I reached the door, I heard my mother's voice one last time. You'll regret this, she said, her words full of cold anger. We'll see how far you get without us. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. As I closed the door behind me, I knew I had crossed a line. There was no going back now. The family I had once fought so hard to fit into had no place for me anymore. And I was okay with that. I had made my choice, and I would no longer live in their shadow. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across my apartment. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my blouse, trying to breathe through the tension that seemed to fill every corner of my life. Today was supposed to be about me, about the business event I had been preparing for. But instead, it felt like the weight of my family's expectations was pushing down on me once again. I could hear my phone buzzing from the other room, but I didn't need to check it. I already knew who it was. My sister, Sarah. She'd been relentless in her pursuit to drag me back into the family fold, to remind me of my place, of my duty. I reluctantly walked over to the phone and hit play on the voicemail. Her voice was syrupy sweet, laced with guilt. "Hannah," she said, her tone feigning concern. "I'm really worried about you. This whole thing, it's tearing the family apart. You can't just walk away like this. Please come back and make things right. We need you." I felt a tight knot in my stomach, but it wasn't the kind of guilt I used to feel. It was anger now, simmering just below the surface. I had spent my whole life trying to appease them, trying to earn their love and approval. And what had it gotten me? A lifetime of being treated like a second-class citizen. No more. With a deep breath, I typed out a message to Sarah. "I'm done being the family martyr. I'm not coming back. I don't owe you or anyone else an apology for living my life on my own terms." I hit send, feeling a strange mix of relief and defiance. This was the moment. I had finally drawn the line. Later that afternoon, the event Victoria had invited me to felt like a different world. The air was crisp, and the hum of conversation blended with the clinking of glasses. I moved through the crowd, my confidence growing with each step. This wasn't just any event. This was my new beginning. This was the world I belonged in now. Victoria introduced me to one of the most prominent investors in the industry. We exchanged pleasantries, but it was clear she was impressed by my work. She asked for more details about my event planning business, and I could feel the gears in my mind turning. This was what it meant to be truly respected, without the shadow of my family's influence hanging over me. As the conversation wrapped up, I noticed my phone buzzing again. I glanced at the screen. My mother's name flashed across the display. "Not now," I muttered to myself, turning the phone face down. The temptation to pick up was strong, but I knew it would only drag me back into their web of manipulation. By the time I returned to my apartment that evening, the adrenaline from the event still coursed through me. The moment I stepped inside, the phone rang again. It was my father. "Hannah, we need to talk," he said, his voice filled with urgency. I had expected this. What I hadn't expected was the sharp pang of betrayal that hit me when he spoke next. "You're tearing the family apart. You know that, right? You're making a selfish decision." I could feel the tension building inside me, a storm of emotions threatening to break free. This man, who had always been the quieter, more supportive parent, was now siding with my mother. He was complicit in all of it. The favoritism, the manipulation, the way I was used and ignored. "Dad, you have no idea what I've been through," I snapped, my voice shaking. "You've never once stood up for me. You've always let Mom push me around, and now you want me to feel guilty for wanting something better for myself?" There was silence on the other end, and then his voice cracked. "Why do you have to be so stubborn? This isn't the way we raised you." I shook my head, barely able to contain the anger bubbling up inside. "You didn't raise me. You let her do that. You let her make me feel invisible. I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm not coming back." Before he could respond, I ended the call. I didn't need to hear more. There was nothing left to say. Later that night, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about reclaiming my life. I no longer needed to seek approval from anyone. Not from my mother, not from my father, not from anyone in my family. I picked up my pen and began writing a letter, the words flowing out of me with a clarity I had never felt before. I was done being their emotional punching bag. Done living in the shadow of their expectations. I had built something for myself, and I was not going to let them take it away. The event I had attended earlier that day was a turning point. I was no longer the quiet, overlooked daughter. I was a woman with my own power, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. As I stood in front of the mirror, dressed for the evening, I couldn't help but smile. I had sent the letter. I had made my decision. I was no longer bound by their toxic expectations. But as the night wore on, and I stepped into the event's grand hall, ready to face whatever came next, I realized something. I was ready for my future. But would my family ever accept the new me? The doors opened, and I walked in with my head held high, feeling the power of my choices. As I looked ahead, I saw my future unfold before me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change again. Someone from my past was in the room, and I had no idea how they would fit into this new chapter of my life. The conference room buzzed with energy as I made my way to the stage. The investors were here, and so was Victoria. This was it, the moment I had been working toward for years. The deal I was about to close would define not only my future, but also my place in this industry. As I walked into the room, I felt the weight of my journey on my shoulders. Every rejection, every sacrifice, and every tear that had led to this point now fueled my resolve. But just as I began to settle into the rhythm of the event, something stopped me dead in my tracks. Through the crowd, I saw them, my mother and Sarah. Their unexpected appearance was like a punch to the gut. They hadn't changed. My mother, her smile tight and forced, met my eyes across the room. And Sarah, standing just a few steps behind her, glanced at me with a familiar, passive-aggressive smirk. For a moment, time stood still. My heart pounded in my chest as a flood of emotions hit me. Anger, confusion, but also the slightest flicker of something I couldn't quite name. Hope? A desperate, buried part of me had always wanted reconciliation, hadn't it? I froze, the weight of their presence pressing down on me. My mother's eyes pleaded, silently begging for me to return home. Her apology, if it could be called that, was trapped in her body language, desperate and manipulative. She was here to reel me back in, to make me feel guilty for moving on. I could feel my old instincts kicking in, the desire to be the good daughter, to do the right thing. But I wasn't that person anymore. Taking a deep breath, I turned away and walked toward the stage. The room was buzzing with conversation, and I could hear the investors discussing my proposal. I focused on them. I focused on the future I was building. I couldn't afford to let them steal this moment from me. The conference was winding down, and I had successfully closed the deal. My confidence soared as the investors applauded my presentation, a validation I hadn't realized I needed so badly. But my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of the moment. It was a message from Sarah. "Please, just come back. We're having a family meeting. This is your last chance to fix things." I stared at the message for a few seconds, the weight of her words sinking in. My fingers hovered over the screen. I wanted to call back. I wanted to go home, to give in to the old patterns. But then I remembered the deal I had just secured, the future I was building. I couldn't let the past drag me back. I ignored her message. But as I walked away from the table, another message pinged. This time, it was from my mother. "Mom's health is failing. Please come home." That was it. The final attempt to reel me back in. For a moment, I felt something break inside me. Guilt. Or was it just the last shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different? I couldn't be the person they wanted me to be anymore. But as the applause continued, I pushed it all aside. This was my moment. This was my victory. Later that night, back in my apartment, the weight of it all hit me. I sat on my couch, staring at the city lights outside my window. I had worked so hard to get here, to stand on my own, to make something of myself. And yet, my family was still trying to pull me back into their orbit. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. The pain of their absence, of their rejection, was still there. But it wasn't as sharp as it used to be. I had built a life for myself, and I didn't need their approval anymore. But then my phone rang. It was a video call from my father. I hesitated. I didn't want to answer, didn't want to hear his voice, the voice of someone who had never stood up for me. But I answered anyway, not knowing what else to do. "Hannah," he said, his voice fragile, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry for everything. I know I haven't been there for you, and I don't know how to fix it, but I don't want to lose you." I swallowed hard. This wasn't what I had expected. He was apologizing, but it didn't feel real. It felt like just another attempt to pull me back into their toxic world. "You didn't stand up for me when I needed you most," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "You let her control everything, and now you want me to forget all of that?" His face fell. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I didn't know how to help." I shook my head. "I can't do this anymore. I can't go back. I've spent my whole life trying to make you proud. And for what? To be the family servant? I'm done." With that, I ended the call. The next morning, I walked through the familiar doors of my family's house, the place that had once felt like home. Now, it felt like a battlefield. My father stood in the hallway, his face filled with regret. "Hannah, please," he began, his voice pleading. "I know I've failed you, but I'm asking you, please don't turn your back on us." I looked at him, my heart heavy. "You failed me for years. You let her do it. You let her treat me like this. And now you want me to come back? To pretend everything is fine?" He looked down, ashamed. "I can't be your emotional punching bag anymore," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not coming back. Not for you, not for her. I'm not going to be anyone's sacrifice." As I left the house for the last time, I felt the final weight of their hold on me lift. I turned my back on the past, finally free. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at the woman I had become. I had done it. I had broken free. And now, I was ready to move forward. The business deal had been the start, but this was The morning sunlight filtered softly through the blinds of my office, casting long shadows on the polished desk. I was feeling the weight of my achievements, the culmination of years of hard work. Today was another step forward in building the future I had fought for. The deal I had just signed was my confirmation, my declaration that I had succeeded on my own terms. But as I sat there, soaking in the calm, there was an unexpected knock at the door. The lawyer walked in, crisp in his suit, holding a file that felt heavier than it should. "Miss Hannah," he said politely, placing the papers on my desk. "I have a message from your family." I froze. My family. I hadn't spoken to them in months, not since the last time they tried to reel me back into their web of manipulation. The last thing I expected today was for them to show up at my office, especially with legal documents. I scanned the page he handed me, barely containing my shock. It was an offer, a settlement to resolve everything. They wanted to patch things up, throw money at the problem, and pretend that everything could go back to the way it was. They were even offering to return some inheritance, a gesture meant to soften the blow. "Are you serious?" I asked, the frustration creeping into my voice. I didn't need to ask. I already knew what they were trying to do. They thought they could buy me back, like they always had. The lawyer's expression was unreadable, but he pressed on. "Your father, he regrets the way things have gone. He wants to make amends before it's too late." I didn't hesitate. "I'm not interested," I said firmly, pushing the papers aside. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me again. Not now. Not ever. But then, he dropped a bombshell that left me reeling. "Your father. He's afraid this might be his last chance to fix things with you." His words hit me harder than I expected. The man who had never once stood up for me, who had let my mother control everything, was now trying to play the role of the grieving parent, desperate to make amends. I sat there, silent for a moment, letting it all sink in. The family I had been running from, the same people who had hurt me time and time again, were now reaching out in desperation. Part of me wanted to go back, to fix everything, to be the dutiful daughter. But another part of me, stronger than I had ever felt before, knew that the only way to truly heal was to walk away. The lawyer looked at me expectantly. "Please reconsider, for your father's sake." I shook my head. "I've made my decision," I said, standing up. "Tell them it's too late." I had made up my mind, but the weight of what I was about to face was still ahead of me. I couldn't help but feel the pull of the past as I drove to the family estate. It had been so long since I had walked through those doors. The house, once full of memories, now felt like a trap, a place where I had spent too many years fighting to be seen, fighting to matter. As I entered the living room, my father was sitting in his favorite chair, a weary, fragile version of the man I had once looked up to. Sarah was there too, her posture stiff, her eyes nervously darting between me and the door. "Hannah," my father's voice was shaky. "I know I've failed you. I've made so many mistakes, and I wish I could take them back. But I'm asking you, please don't turn your back on your family." I felt a pang of guilt, but it quickly turned to anger. The apologies were too little, too late. "You let her destroy me," I said, the words feeling like a physical blow. "You sat by and let her control everything. And now you want me to come back? To play this game again?" Sarah chimed in, trying to play the role of the innocent bystander. "Hannah, it's not like that. You don't understand. We're just trying to fix things. It's not just about the past, it's about us, as a family." I laughed bitterly. "A family? This is just a sick cycle of guilt and manipulation." I stood my ground, glaring at both of them. "You've been planning this, haven't you? Using guilt to pull me back in, hoping I'd fall for it. But not anymore. I'm done." The confrontation had reached its boiling point, but I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to leave until I fully confronted them, once and for all. We moved to the dining room, and the silence in the room felt heavy, oppressive. My father looked at me with a mixture of regret and hope, his eyes pleading for me to come back into the fold. Sarah was watching me closely, waiting for me to break, but I wasn't going to. "I'm not your emotional punching bag anymore," I said, my voice cold. "I will not be used to make you feel better. Not now. Not ever again." Sarah's face twisted, her eyes flashing with anger. "You'll regret this, Hannah. You'll see. We're your family." "You'll never be free of us." I didn't flinch. "I'm already free. I'm free of you, of this whole damn thing." And with that, I walked out. I had broken the cycle. I was done. That night, alone in my apartment, I looked at myself in the mirror. It felt surreal, the weight of what I had just done. But there was something else too. Something lighter. I had let go of the past. Finally. I could breathe. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bound by their expectations. I sat down at my desk and began to write. Not to my family, not to beg for their approval. This letter wasn't about them. It was about me. I was done trying to fit into a mold that never fit. I was done being the person they wanted me to be. I was finally becoming the person I was always meant to be. I sealed the envelope, knowing it was my final step toward healing. The next day, I stood in front of a room full of reporters. My story was finally going to be heard. I was no longer the invisible daughter. And I wasn't hiding anymore. I had earned my place here, not because of my family, but because of my own strength, my own will. I told them everything, the manipulation, the lies, the hurt. I wasn't afraid to speak the truth anymore. And then, just as I finished, I surprised them all. "And today, I'm also announcing something new," I said, my voice steady. "I'm partnering with some of the biggest investors to launch an expansion of my company." The room erupted in applause. But just I stood in front of the family estate, the place that had once been my prison, now looming before me like a ghost from the past. The air was thick with the weight of unresolved emotions. My father had begged me to come back, and here I was, standing at the threshold, ready to finally face the truth that had been hidden from me for so long. It was early in the morning, and the house was quieter than I remembered. The faint scent of old wood and memories I'd tried so hard to bury lingered in the corners. My heart pounded in my chest as I entered the living room, where my father was waiting, weak but resolute. Sarah stood off to the side, her eyes avoiding mine, filled with a mixture of guilt and uncertainty. Hannah. My father spoke first, his voice shaking with a vulnerability I hadn't heard before. I know I've wronged you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to understand that I've tried to make things right. I'm sorry. The apology, though long overdue, felt hollow. Years of neglect, of watching my mother control everything, left no room for reconciliation. Still, I felt the weight of my father's words, and for a moment I was tempted to give in. But no. This was the moment I had been waiting for, my closure, my chance to reclaim the life that had been stolen from me. Dad, I said, my voice firm, you've done enough. I appreciate that you finally admitted the truth, but it's too late. The damage has been done. My father looked down, his face etched with regret. Then, as if trying to salvage something, he handed me a piece of paper. It was a document, one that revealed his hidden actions. For the first time, I saw something that would set me free. It was a financial document, proof that my father had been working behind the scenes to ensure my financial independence, something he'd never told me before. I stared at it, stunned. This was the final piece of the puzzle. The manipulation, the control, they had all been part of a plan to make me dependent. But now, with this truth, I could finally walk away for good. The family's hold on me was broken. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. He didn't answer. He just looked at me with those sad eyes, waiting for something he could never give me. Forgiveness. As the morning wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real confrontation was yet to come. I was done with the lies, done with the manipulation. This was my last chance to make things right for myself. I couldn't let them control me anymore. The conversation moved to the family estate's living room, where the air felt even heavier. My father's apology hung in the air like a fragile thing, something that could be easily broken. Sarah stood beside him, her posture rigid, but her eyes filled with regret. I spoke first. I've been thinking a lot about everything. I know you want me to come back, to make it all right, but it's not that simple. Sarah's eyes widened. Hannah, you don't understand. We've all been hurt. We're trying to make amends. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Trying to make amends. For years, they had used me as a pawn in their games, controlling me with guilt and fear. You don't get it, I said, my voice shaking. You've never seen me for who I am. You've always tried to make me into something I'm not. I can't keep living like this. There was silence. Sarah stepped forward, her voice softer now, more sincere. I'm sorry, Hannah. I know I played a part in all of this. I was just afraid. Afraid of losing everything. The words were unexpected, and they stung in a way I didn't expect. Sarah, my sister, the one who had always been my rival, was finally admitting her own fears. But it didn't change what had happened. It didn't undo the years of pain. I hear you, I said, my voice wavering. But it doesn't make it right. And then, as if the floodgates had opened, Sarah said, I'm sorry for everything, Hannah. I didn't know how to be the sister you needed. I was too scared of what we'd lose. I looked at her, unsure of what to feel. She had just apologized for everything she had done, but part of me knew it wasn't enough. The damage was done, and we could never go back. By the time the afternoon rolled around, I was standing in the garden of the family estate. It was beautiful, as it always had been, but I didn't feel any sense of attachment anymore. The house, the land, it was all just a symbol of the past I needed to let go of. My father came out to join me, his frailty more evident than ever. Hannah, I know this is hard for you, he said softly, but please reconsider. The inheritance, it's yours. You've worked for it. Don't throw it all away. I could see the desperation in his eyes, but I knew what I had to do. No, Dad, I said, my voice firm. I'm moving on. I don't need anything from you anymore. I handed him the legal document I had signed earlier, officially severing my ties to the family business. It was done. No more manipulation. No more guilt. I was free. Later that evening, I sat in my new office overlooking the city. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to build something that was truly mine. No longer weighed down by the expectations of my family, I was free to create my own future. I had my first big meeting as the head of my own company. The investors, the partners, they were all eager to work with me, to support my vision. I wasn't just the daughter of my father anymore. I was Hannah. And for the first time, I was proud of who I was becoming. Just then, my phone buzzed. I glanced down to see a message from my father, a short but heartfelt note. "I'm proud of you, Hannah." I smiled, a tear escaping from my eye. I didn't need his approval anymore. I had finally found peace within myself. The future was mine. The phone rang again. This time it was a potential new partner, someone who admired my story and wanted to collaborate on a major project. As I hung up the phone, I looked out at the city skyline, knowing that the future was wide open for me. It was my turn to shape it.